and the participants.
Yeah. So
Please go ahead.
Yeah, on behalf of AOI Haryana, this is a part of the academic activities that we do. So every month we have an online webinar. This month we are having a panel discussion, and Dr. Prem Sagar from AIMS will be the moderator for today's topic, which is mastectomy surgeries and its complications. I'll request Raman, who is our scientific coordinator, to please introduce our moderator and the panelist. I'll hand over to Dr. Raman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, a very good evening to everyone. I'm Dr. Raman Sharma. I'm currently working as assistant professor at Lady Hardinge Medical College. So, I welcome everyone to this third chapter of our webinar series that we are conducting since last 3 years. So, this is our third session. In the previous session, we had a discussion on the laryngology part. It was delivered by international and national faculty. And today we are going to discuss something basic, which we all are doing routinely, yet we find sometimes some difficulties in managing these cases. So the topic of today's webinar will be the current trends in the management of complications of mastectomy. So the purpose of keeping this topic is that a common consensus or a message should be delivered to the exam going residents. And none other than Dr. Prem Sagar will be the best moderator for this session. So we have Dr. Prem Sagar. She'll be moderating today's session. Ma'am is professor at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, in the Department of ENT and Head and Neck Surgery. And ma'am has a special interest in the field of neuro-otology, pediatric otorhinolaryngology. So thank you, ma'am, for sparing your time and sharing your insights today's session. And we have the panel of experts in the field of otology. To start with, we have Dr. J.C. Pasi. He is a Dean cum Principal and Professor of ENT at World College of Medical Sciences, Jhajjar. Then we have Dr. Uma Garg, ma'am. She is Professor and Head at BPS Kanpur. We have Dr. Raman Vadera. Sir is Professor at ENT in the Department of ENT at PGI Rohtak. We have Dr. Abhinav Srivastav. Sir is Professor and Head ENT at Rohilkhand Medical College and Hospital. We have Dr. Amit Sharma, who agreed to be a part of the panel in the last hour. So thank you very much, sir. He's the head of department at Shenley Center International Hospital, Gurgaon. So I request everyone to please, the other than panelist and the moderator, to please mute yourself, keep your self muted. And if you have any queries or comments, so please post on the chat box. So now I request Dr. Prem Sagar ma'am to please share your screen and you can start the session.
Is my screen visible to all?
Yes.
So good evening all. I'll try to cover the complications of mastoidectomy, keeping the residents in view, as Dr. Raman has already briefed me earlier. So today's panelist, he has already introduced. So Dr. J.C. Pasi sir, Dr. Uma Garg ma'am, Dr. Raman Vadera, Dr. Amit Sharma, and Dr. Abhinav Srivastav. To start with, the eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend. That is why before we start performing any ear or mastoid surgeries, we should be aware of the possible complications that happen during the surgery, because this small area, this is associated so many vital structures that it can lead to complications which are so morbid, like hearing loss, which can lead to permanent disability or vertigo, and maybe sometimes lead to intracranial infection, meningitis. Also, the most dreaded complication of facial nerve paralysis. That is why we all should be aware of the possible complications and how to manage those complications, and of course, how to avoid those complications.
Excuse me, ma'am, sorry for interruption, but I think your screen is not visible. You have not shared your screen yet.
Yes. Your screen is not visible.
It's not visible?
No.
Just click on the share button.
It's not visible even now.
No.
No, not yet.
So should I go to the settings or something?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
when you click on this, when
Yeah.
your cursor is on the screen, there is a share button at the bottom.
I did that.
You did that, but it's not showing, huh?
Yeah.
And what you can see is you can just disconnect for a while and then connect again using that link.
Or should I go to my settings first? So I thought Dr. Raman told me that yes, it's visible, so I proceeded.
No, I did say. On sharing options, multiple shares for the participants. Now click again on
Yeah,
the
just
share
a
icon. Yes, now
Yes,
we can
now
see.
now it has started.
Okay, okay. So I welcome all the panelists here. This is the opening slide. So now, as I have mentioned, because we all are talking about the mastoid surgeries, we must look into the facts that because we deal with so many vital structures here, there are different complications that can happen. So we must be aware of the possible complications. So these are the few of the common complications which I have briefed here: the intraoperative complications and the postoperative complications. Dr. Pasi sir, the first input from your side, have I missed any other complications, the common ones?
Yes. I'm just counting your whatever you have given us. Injury to
Sir.
stapes, infection.
The dural plate injury, the sinus plate injury with or without bleeding, injury to the lateral semicircular canal and labyrinth per se, injury to the facial nerve, injury to the ossicles, and specifically stapes. Postoperatively, we can have SN loss, vertigo, facial paralysis, infection, recidivism, and inadequate metaplasty and other cavity-related issues.
Yeah, I think you have listed almost all the complications. I will just like to add injury to the other ossicles other than stapes also can happen.
Yes, sir.
This will depend on what kind of mastectomy we are doing. Whether it is only cortical mastectomy or inside out or only
Yes, sir.
mastectomy or a modified radical mastectomy. So the complications will vary as according to the procedure.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So, because the complications of mastoidectomy is such a very important topic that we can talk for hours on the complications. That's why I will be limiting the whole talk on canal wall down mastoidectomy, and we'll cover majority of the complications. I'll like to add one more category of complications, which is preoperative complications. This is my own perception of complications. I feel if we miss these points preoperatively, we are very likely to land up in complications. So these can be counted as preventive measures. So I'll not discuss about that, but just to mention, if we miss the anatomic and pathophysiologic knowledge of the disease and the organ that we are approaching, that can lead to complications. If we have missed that this operating ear is the only hearing ear, or there's existing sensory neural or mixed hearing loss which we have missed, then we are bound to land up in complications. If we have not evaluated the radiology properly ourselves, we may land up in complications. Again, if we have missed the previous surgical findings in revision cases, And if we have not taken the consent properly, then we are likely to land up in complications. Pastor sir, am I wrong
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
aspect?
Dr. Prem, I will just like to add one more in preoperative, that you have
Yes,
to
sir.
look for your equipment, your microscopes, and all other instruments,
Yes.
including a facial nerve monitor.
Perfect.
That has to be seen that everything is in order before you start.
Very
Uh,
valid point, sir.
Dr. Prem, these are very wonderful. This column is very wonderful, and it reminds me of my professor saying, "Prepare to fail to prepare, prepare to
Yes.
fail." So this
Yes,
is
sir.
every resident should know that they should have a checklist, and they should. This is wonderful column, I think.
Thank you, sir. So,
Exactly.
thank you, ma'am. So, prior to the surgery, we will discuss about the consent. But before the consent, I think all the residents should know the parameters, that without knowing these parameters of a particular patient about the particular disease, we cannot take a consent properly. Dr. Uma, ma'am, so will you
Yeah.
agree with these points that we must keep into consideration before we take the consent?
Yes. I think all the points which you have mentioned, a resident or whosoever is doing a mastoid surgery must be understanding in depth all the points, because in consent or counseling, what we call, patient has to be explained exactly the procedure,
Yes, ma'am.
and then what possible complications can occur,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
therefore about the disease as well as about the hearing status,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
need to know in detail. I think
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
very correct. That you have to understand the disease along with the anatomy, pathophysiology, hearing status, radiology, and everything is important to properly counsel the patient so that there are no problems later on.
Because one consent may not be applicable to each and every individual patient.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. One consent may not be applicable to each and every. There are certain things which are to be told to the patient for every case.
Yes, ma'am.
But then, depending on the radiology, depending on the extent of the disease, depending on the anticipated complications,
Yes, ma'am.
because that will depend on the extent of the disease, patient has to be counseling accordingly.
Yes, ma'am. So we mentioned about why does the patient need the surgery? Then the aim of the surgery as removal of the disease, making the ear dry, and restoration or preservation of the hearing.
Yeah.
As ma'am has mentioned, we also explain about the complication risks, the post-operative course, the risk of recidivism, and the follow-up that is needed following the surgery of mastoidectomy. Ma'am, did I miss any of the consent points overall?
Oh, I think you've covered all aim of surgery, risk of complications, post-operative course, residues. Since patient is mostly concerned about, first is discharge,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
second is hearing. So about
Yes.
hearing, patient has to be clearly told, because in many cases, when there's extensive disease or a prolonged, I mean, history is very, very long, sometimes patient will present with a mixed hearing loss. In
Yes, ma'am.
that case, we have to tell the patient that a conductive element of the hearing loss may recover to certain extent, but we cannot do anything about the sensorineural component. So this is one example. And so
Yes, ma'am.
about everything, I think every possible complication patient has to be told in details.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr.
Hello.
Uma,
हाँ
I
जी, हाँ
think
जी.
we need to discuss, elaborate on the complications, what all you are going to say to the patient, and how are you going to explain, keeping also that fact in mind that patient might run away from you if you list all the complications Prem has listed here. So how do we explain the complications to the patient and the attendants? That is very important aspect to be taught to the residents.
Yes.
हाँ जी. Dr. Prem, I want to say something. Dr. Amar is here. Am
Yes,
I
sir.
audible?
Yes, sir, you are absolutely
हाँ,
audible.
हाँ. So now hearing status of the other ear is also important, because
Yes,
if
sir.
hearing is
Yes.
totally normal in the contralateral ear,
Yes,
then
sir.
then results of the tympanoplasty will not be as good as the normal ear.
Yes, sir.
So we should explain the patient in advance that he or she should not expect absolutely normal hearing, provided other ear is normal, because patient is always compared with the normal ear,
Yes, sir. A
his
very
post of
valid
hearing
point.
status.
Yes, sir.
And
Then
and
second one I want to add is that because patient has come to you for basically discharging ear,
Yes, ma'am.
and patient wants naturally, and we also want that ear to be dry. But
Yes.
since after mastoidectomy, it takes time to get the ear dry. So we have to explain it to the patient that it might take 8 to 12 weeks for ear to become dry. And then hearing is another thing which we have to tell.
That's what we are going to explain in the post-operative course, that they need to visit us and there will be some discharge, and the ear to get dry will take 2 to 3 months of time.
Yeah.
and
Yes, ma'am.
and consent for cauda tympani injury must be there, must be taken. Usually we tend to miss that. Be any alteration in the taste.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
ma'am, I'll
Whether
just add to that, Saga ma'am.
yes, sir.
I think for the cholesteatoma surgeries, taste, I will not talk to my patient regarding the taste. I'll definitely talk about the facial. Reason is because the most of the patient, actually the facial would be in kind of dysfunction already. So I will not be specifically mention on the taste part, and I would like house opinion on that because usually these patients will have, if the involvement of the chorda is there, so anyway it won't be causing us to tell them. Of course, facial is one thing I would be very careful and I'll be talking about it.
So the points, the risk of complication that should not be missed are facial nerve paralysis, risk of paresis or paralysis, the risk of SN loss, the risk of recurrence, the risk of, if there is a dural dehiscence, then the risk of CSF leak and meningitis, the risk of infection and recidivism, and wound complications, wound infection, and risk of GA if the patient is planned for general anesthesia, the risk of worsening of hearing, even if it's a conductive hearing loss, the patient may be a cholesteatoma hearer, and it may not be a suitable case for ossiculoplasty in the primary stage. So at least these points must be explained in all cases, and based on the complication or the anticipated complication, as ma'am has mentioned, we can take separate risk of complication from on case-to-case basis.
Yeah.
Now we shall not discuss about the indications, the site determination in case of bilateral disease, approach or route or type of mastoidectomy, because then the whole discussion will be diluted. I'll be focusing only on the primarily on intraoperative complication and to some extent the post-operative complications. With the permission of the house, I'll proceed with the straight away to the complications.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So in the first step of examination under microscope, after we have taken up the patient for surgery itself, and the tympanomeatal flap elevation, Dr. Raman sir has joined? No. Dr.
Yes,
Amit?
yes.
Okay, sir. So Dr. Raman sir, in this step, do you feel is mandatory? And if we miss the before starting the mastoidectomy, are we going to land up in any trouble during surgery?
Yes, basically I will prefer doing EM before surgery.
If we miss that step, what complication or what trouble can we face during the surgery?
Because if you do EM in advance, then at least we can plan all the steps. Then we can see. Then we can have a detailed evaluation of the patient.
No, sir. The question I'll reframe. The patient has already been evaluated prior to surgery. Now on the table, when already the plan has been made, you have taken up the patient after consenting. It is on the operation table that you are proceeding. Would you start your surgery with EUM in all the cases? And if yes, when? And if no, then when?
Basically, we at our setup, we do the EUM a day prior to surgery. In the pre-op period, we do the EUM. Then I don't think there is any need to do the EUM on the table itself. We on the day of surgery.
I may take this question, ma'am.
Yes, please, sir.
100% all the cases of any ear surgery, EUM at the table is also required. There has been incidences when the wrong ear has been opened, and that is fact.
Yeah, I also agree that EUM should always be done before starting surgery.
I also agree, ma'am, because that confirms and documents your findings.
Yeah.
And because you can visualize the tympanic membrane or the elevated, after the elevation of the flap, the middle ear in constant view, then from time to time you can reorient yourself, because
Yeah,
even the
always.
expert otologist may get lost during the process of surgery. And also for identification of the antrum, the depth of the tympanic membrane and the middle ear is very important point to keep in mind. So whatever surgical plan you made, you can elevate the tympanometal flap according to your preference, but UM is a must before proceeding to the proper steps of mastoidectomy. Now, in the incision, I will skip the endoral and other incisions, so I'll keep to the most common ones for the residents' sake. So for the incision, Dr. Amit sir, so this is the incision that we give for a post-oral approach. So should
Yes,
we
ma'am.
take any precaution in any special circumstances?
So, ma'am, basically, this is the standard postural incision which we give. Of course, in a child, we will be a little more careful. We will be a little more horizontal. We will be also taking care that not to go too deep when you're dealing with a child. So that will be
Yes,
the only.
yes, sir. Especially infants,
Yes,
one
ma'am.
to two, till the age of 1 to 2 years, because the
Oh,
mastoid tip
yes.
has not yet developed. So the facial nerve may be superficial. So in circumstances, it can even injure the facial nerve while it is existing from the mastoid tip area. Because if our incision is too deep, then we may injure the facial nerve during the incision itself. So for the residents, it's very important to make your incision slightly horizontal in case of infants.
Dr. Prem, may I add
Yes, sir.
something?
Yes, sir, please.
Dr. Prem, in case of revision surgery, also
Yes, sir.
we have to be very clear that the incision line should not be, cutting through the previous scar. It should be either slightly anterior or posterior to the previous existing scar. And also in case of post-oral fistula,
Yes, sir.
which we generally don't see these days. During our times, we used to have very frequently, we used to have cases of post-oral fistula. But
Yes,
even
sir.
now it can happen, and one has to give an elliptical incision in that case.
So in those revision cases, sir, would you like to excise the previous scar, or you are going to
No, I don't.
So what is the reason that you give slightly anterior or posterior to the previous scar? I think sir is disconnected.
Unmute. Sir, unmute.
So yes, as sir's very experienced, valid points are, if in case of fistula, we must give a modifier incisions, and in revision cases also, we have to keep the previous scar site into consideration.
And can we, like, we might have to extend it a little superiorly, posteriorly, because we might have to take a bigger graft. So those considerations should be there when doing the revision.
Yes, sir. So from patient to patient, it may vary. This, but most commonly, this is the incision. And in infants and revision cases and fistula and other things, we have to be careful. And if we need a scar graft, especially in revision cases, we may have to go anterior or posterior to find another graft. So we have to extend the incision accordingly. Yes. So for the soft tissue work, so whether we are going for cortical mastoidectomy or intracanal mastoidectomy or a canal wall down mastoidectomy with a myotoplasty. So while doing the incision on the soft tissue, what precautions should we keep so that we avoid complications? Dr. Avinav sir, please.
For soft tissue work, definitely it will depend what's our plan. And also, I like to take one more point into consideration, whether we want to obliterate the cavity or not. If we have
Yes.
a plan of obliteration, then our planning should be like maximum. We should preserve this all this soft tissue, because this is going to help us in obliterating the cavity.
So
And
you will
we,
take a Palvas flap in that case, sir?
they definitely pulver flap, and sometimes it can be tailor made also as per one's comfort, because sometimes exact pulver flap, periosteal flap will be basically that will be, but the direction we can change accordingly. Sometimes when you open, you will find the anatomy is also a bit different.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I will try to use cautery at a minimum current only, minimum voltage, because that causes charring effect. So I like to preserve that thing also. And sometimes I prefer blade only and elevation, because that's helps in preserving the soft tissues.
Yes, absolutely. Respecting the tissue in every
Exactly.
surgery at every step
Hmm.
is absolutely must for every experienced surgeon.
Hmm.
Yes. So
So
going to, yes, sir.
these are the initial points we should consider while doing. And for resident also, when we give them under supervision, we also advise them to follow this, because irrational just soft tissue handling, that is, because these are also gold actually, all the
Yes.
soft tissue, that's
Yes.
decide our post-op healing and everything also.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So if you're planning for a myoplasty, then the anterior, if you're giving a T
That's
incision, then the anterior limb of the T should be very minimum, because that part of the tissue
Hmm.
is going not to be used following a myoplasty.
Oh,
So that has to be very short, the anterior part of the horizontal vertical limb as per the incision, and the horizontal actually in the perfect position of the patient. Then we'll start with the first step after we have exposed the bone, elevating the periosteal flaps. Then how important is it to identify the McEwen's triangle? Professor Pasi, sir.
We must always try to identify and delineate the McEwen's triangle. The prominence of the Henley may be missing in around 10% of cases.
Yes, sir.
So we should Henley, but
Sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
mm.
Dr. Prem, I want to add something.
Sir, yes.
I think before giving postural incision, we should give incision in the canal also, because if we are planning to make a corner flap, then
Yes, sir.
we will have to give a middle circumferential incision just lateral to the tympanic annulus, and then 2 radial incision at 6 and 12 o'clock.
Yes,
So
sir.
those incisions,
Yes, sir.
so those incisions we will have to give it before giving the post-oral incision.
Yes, sir. Sir. That point has been, that's why I mentioned UM and TM flap elevation. So if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
give incision, then the cut in the canal is going to be as per your desire. Otherwise, it's going to be very rough and undesirable position. So you can give your
because
incision while doing the UM itself.
Because if you are planning to do the infinity-based stakes flap, then incision is different.
Yes, sir.
Huh.
So based on the myoplasty that you are going to plan, you can give the incision accordingly
Yeah.
while you are doing the UM.
Yeah.
So McEwen triangles is very, very vital to identify and before we start, because that demarcates the surface anatomy for the underlying antrum, which is there in the medial part of it, and antral cell. And to be safer, not to injure the vital structures of dural plate and the EAC, if you want to preserve the bony EAC, and to identify the antrum very correctly. Now the direction, we start to drill along the McEwen's triangle. We start by using the burrs. So Dr. Uma ma'am, what precaution, what are you going to advise the residents while about the uses of burrs? Which burr, which size, and how to use the burr?
See, first of all, as everybody will agree to that this anatomy of McEwen's triangle is very, very important. And
Yes.
sometimes the spinal family is not there. The boundaries should be known to the resident. He should know about the boundaries. And if spine of Henle is absent or atretic, then the criteria as surgeon is important to be identified because the
Yes.
drilling has to be done in this area.
Yes,
About
ma'am.
burrs, to begin with, we have to use a cutting burr, and the burr has to be of maximum size to
Yes.
start with.
Yes, ma'am.
And the first you will draw the triangle, McEwen's triangle, with the first thing, and then in the McEwen's triangle you will start drilling. And the first you should be drilling all along or behind keeping the spine of Henle intact,
Yes, as we can see
parallel
here.
to the posterior to the external auditory canal and in a semicircular fashion, and not at one place.
Yes, ma'am.
And along with continuous irrigation, so that there is no trauma by heat and by the this vibrating burr. So cutting burr, maximum size or the biggest burr, and in the speed is to be fixed, and along with continuous irrigation.
Very, very important points. The biggest size, because that way you are going to less likely to injure or go into cut into the dural plate or the sinus plate. But whatever size of burrs the resident use, they must be aware that all 360 degrees around the burr, whichever structures you are touching, you should be aware of that. So in that particular field, whichever burr size is fitting without touching unwanted structures, the maximum size has to be used. Irrigation, as ma'am has mentioned, not only keeps the field clear, it also removes the bone dust from the drill itself, and it also addresses reduces the bacterial count and further infection. Also, it reorients the surgeon from time to time, because once you give wash, so suddenly you feel the whole field to be like, you don't lose the track of the forest. So it has to, and also it avoids the thermal injury, as ma'am has already pointed out.
Dr. Prem?
Yes, sir.
I think McEwen triangle is a very small triangle in area. So we should also consider triangle of attack. Triangle of attack is basically a superior tegmental plate is there, posterior sinus plate is there, and anteriorly a tangent parallel to the posterior EAC is there.
Sir, we'll go to that.
So that area is slightly bigger.
Yes. Yes.
So I think initially we should focus on that area.
So that's for the beginning of the drilling process. Once we have started and started the drilling process, then the next step is, of course, dural plate delineation. So, Dr. Raman, sir.
Can I interrupt a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Aditya Bhargava, that once we are talking of McEwen's triangle,
yes, sir.
The spine of Henle, though it is very common structure present, but in many years, this spine of Henle is not there. It is not very prominent.
Yes,
so
sir.
In that case, we have to see the posterior superior area of the thing and consider it as a spine of Henle. And the line drawn, as Raman was saying, the angle of attack or triangle of attack comes after we delineate the McEwen's triangle.
Yes.
So that is the subsequent step. Triangle of attack is very important. As
that is why, sir, it is the next slide after.
No.
Okay.
Sir, that is subsequent step. But I think we should delineate the triangle of attack also on the very beginning.
Yes, sir. That we are going
Actually,
to discuss
I wanted to say that
sir.
thing.
Yes.
And she said there's a next slide. Probably we are jumping to that slide.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the next step would be delineate the dural plate, because this is a very, very important step. The residents who start doing mastoidectomy may get impatient and start to look for the antrum cell without delineating the dural plate, and that way they may land up in many significant complications. So dural plate delineation is very, very vital. Dr. Raman sir, how would you make sure that you have delineated the dural plate, and what precautions are you going to take while delineating the dural plate?
But one thing is that I will use the largest possible burr by
sir.
delineating the dural plate, and while doing any surgery, I will keep a view of the tympanic membrane also. I will keep in focus both the things.
Yes, sir.
EAC, as well as a posterior kinesteroid cavity.
Yes, sir.
So when I will delineate the dural plate, so I will keep in mind the linea temporalis, and
Yes.
and I will do burring parallel to that.
Yes, sir. So, in over-pneumatized mastoid bones, it can be beyond the linea temporalis, and in contracted
Yeah.
antrum cases, it may be below the linea temporalis.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is
yeah,
why
yeah.
pre-op assessment of the radiology is very, very crucial.
Yes.
So when we start drilling, once we encounter that the air cell numbers have started decreasing, we are starting to see a smooth ivory white bone with a pinkish hue underlying, which is
Yeah,
because of the
pinkish hue.
dura.
Yeah,
Then we must be cautious that we are approaching the dura, and also the change in the sound of the burr, because it becomes a higher frequency, higher pitch sound, that we all these senior faculties will agree with, that it's the sound also changes as we approach the
Changes.
dural plate or the sinus plate. And the precautions that we must keep in mind is we have to use, as sir has mentioned, the largest cutting burr. We have to drill along parallel to the direction of the dural plate. But remember, the dural plate is convex as we go medial. And the final thin bone, if we want to smoothen it, we have to use the largest diamond burr instead of cutting burr. And of course, we must assess the radiology preoperatively. Dr. Amit Sharma, sir, if...
Dr. Prem, I would just
Sir.
like to add few things.
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
My experience is the beginners, the new surgeons on the mastoid bone, they tend to start drilling quite posterior on the cortex, with the result that the posterior canal wall is very thick.
Yes, sir.
They don't make it thin from the very beginning, resulting into sometime injuring the sinus plate. This is one. Second thing, I would have, I thought Dr. Prem would talk about corner septum also while.
That is there, sir. Next slide.
Okay. And the third thing is the spine of Henle. Generally, impression is that the mastoid antrum they will find immediately posterior to that. While it is not exactly posterior to the spine of Henle, it is slightly posterior superior to the spine of Henle, the largest air cell that is mastoid antrum.
Yes, sir. We will discuss about the antral cell in detail, sir. So,
and sorry to interrupt. One more thing, actually, sometimes radiology, many times it doesn't tell us the exact situation. Actually, also sometimes it will find that it is a high-lying dura, and you find it otherwise around there. So
Low lying.
low-lying. It's low-lying then. So it's sometimes it doesn't exactly match.
No,
Because
Dr.
radiology is something not clear. That is why we have to keep those things in mind, that the color and the sound of burr, they both change.
Exactly. The real-time situation which we are facing, that is very important, because sometimes they get by, sir. It was high. It was showing that the dura is quite high, so I started with it, and they'll end up injuring it. So it has happened.
Sir, the radiology is actually very, very sensitive. Yes, once in a while there can be, we can miss the findings, but radiology is very, very sensitive. It is as high as 99 to 100% sensitive in detecting.
So it is very unlikely. Only thing is that what we're talking about might be a comparison to something.
Somebody's mic is on.
Amit sir is want to share something, I think.
Unmuted.
Dr. Amit sir, if somebody injures the dural plate, so just the dural plate with the exposed dura. So what should the resident do at that point of time?
First of all, you should stop drilling and should call the boss. That's the first thing you should do. That he has done some mistake, and let somebody come and assist him now. What he should say is, what is the size of the dural defect? Mostly, a millimeter size issue is not going to cause any trouble. He can continue with the rest of the work. Problem is, if the defect is too big, that becomes a matter of concern. Now, if that is a scenario, then we got to do something about it. If it's a minimal breach, actually, frankly saying, nothing much to be done.
So,
Just a breach will not matter unless there's a CSF rhinorrhea. I mean, just exposure is not very harmful or dangerous.
So ma'am, I'll take the liberty on this one. Not the exactly the CSF leak, ma'am, but the size of the defect would matter. If it is a really big one, we got to close this later on.
Yeah, both things are important, but even if with a small breach there's a CSF, then you have to take care of it, no?
Yes, sir, certainly, certainly.
so if it's just the exposure of the dura, nothing to worry if the size is small. Later, but be careful that the cutting bar shouldn't touch that area in future further drilling. However, at the end of the surgery, we can cover that with an extra layer of fascia.
Certainly.
However, if the size is more than 5.5 to 0.6 centimeter, the chances of brain herniation following after some time post-operatively might be there. So that must be corrected by putting a piece of cartilage by underlay technique, or maybe applying bone pate over the dehiscent area, which is going to avoid the future brain fungus or brain herniation. So like in this case, this is just one brief case where you can see that this patient underwent surgery 10 years back. Now he has a attic disease. And the dehiscent, as you can see in this particular cut, the dehiscence and the soft tissue herniating is lateral to the attic disease. As we can see here, this is the disease and this is the dehiscence and the soft tissue prolapse. So if we want to avoid such kind of situation in future, then we must close that defect in the first surgery itself. So, and this is the MR of that patient where we can say the meninges were prolapsing into the defect area. So this patient, what was finding intraoperative is, so as the flap was elevated, you can see there is a dehiscent area here during the flap elevation itself. And while elevating the flap, there was a leak here. So after the delineation of the whole of the defect and after removing the disease from the attic by inside out technique, because there was no question of going outside in, the herniation was right in the antral area. So after removing the disease completely, as we can see, the disease was removed completely. Now this defect, which was approximately 2.5 into 1.5 centimeter, as you can see with the CSF leak. So this area was closed in layers. So if there is a CSF leak, it must be addressed right then and right there in this particular fashion also. So this video shows how to repair a leak, and the bony support or cartilaginous support also must be given if it's a larger defect, which is usually 0.5 to 0.6, more than that. So what we use is a conchal cartilage. So after repairing that area with a layer of fascia, as you can see here, then a piece of cartilage was used and kept underlay fascia as the apart from the fascia itself. So this part of the defect was not, that seal was not properly sealed. So muscle plug was used to seal that area and again augmented by another piece of cartilage. Then the third layer was another overlay technique fascia followed by tissue glue, and the mastoid was closed as per the other steps of a routine mastoidectomy. So if you encounter a larger defect intraoperatively with a CSF leak, any defect with CSF leak must be addressed then and there. If it's a larger defect without a CSF leak, that has to be addressed. I hope all the the panelists agree with these points.
Yes.
Yes,
Dr.
right.
Prem, as far as the muscle flap is concerned, it should be put after the underlay cartilage that you have shown. In all cases, even if there is a complete closure of the defect with underlay cartilage only, muscle cover and then followed by the fascia and the glue that you have shown, is all should be done so that we avoid the complication of brain fungus and a possible meningitis in future.
Yes, sir. So this is not just for the residents. So if we do not address the intraoperative dural defect and the CSF leaks, so something significant can also happen. He is a 12-year-old boy with recurrent episodes of meningitis following a mastoidectomy. So he presented with this CT scan finding where we could not delineate any dural plate or sinus plate. Unsurprisingly, his MRI was this. So he had a massive fungal brain fungus, actually fungal brain abscess, starting from that area with so significant peri-abscess edema, which is causing almost midline shift. So this patient underwent drainage by the neurosurgeons and is still currently admitted with us. So repair is recommended, as I mentioned. And if you cannot seal the CSF leak, or you cannot is completely repair the defect, then a subtotal peterectomy is also another option, but we will not discuss about that in detail because that's going to cover our time. Now, delineation of the sinus plate, Dr. Avinav. So
Yes.
during this delineation of the sinus plate, what complications can happen and how to tackle that?
Actually, the main thing is sometimes during drilling, and there's a direct injury, and suddenly there's a gush of blood coming. So the 3Ps: packing, patience,
Yes.
and pressure. This it still remains the gold standard, and most of the
Yes.
times it resolves. And
Yes.
the other thing is, if at all it doesn't resolve, then we can use Surgicel. Bone wax are the options. And but 99% of the time it resolves, what I feel.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
sometimes when we drill, sometimes because of the anatomy in the anteriorly placed sinus, it comes it obscures our view, and then we need to be cautious in that also while drilling.
Yes, in those cases, if the disease is still medial to it, then we have to delineate purposefully,
The
remove the
whole of
whole
the
of the sinus plate
sinus,
and
and
reduce
then
and retract
yes.
and remove the disease.
And then it
Yes.
gradually decompresses the moment we delineate it, and just we should leave just a layer of periosteum over it, and then using a face elevator or it slowly decompresses it, and then your vision is fantastic. Then you can operate.
Pasi sir, these steps are mentioned in few of the books. So have you ever done so they say if the defect in the sinus is too big, then you use two Fogarty catheters in each side, and over that you do the suturing or use a muscle plate and suture it. So have you ever done this kind of?
No, actually, I agree with Abhinav that most of the time we don't need any
Yes.
invasive thing to control the bleeding here.
Yes,
Most
sir.
of the time, bleeding stops with pressure, and what I do, I don't wait for anything. I just apply the bone wax immediately, and
sir.
it works.
Yes, sir.
Your question is the large defect, which is
Yes, sir.
already existing because of the disease.
Large defect, and while removing the disease, there's a significant amount of bleeding. And it is so large. I mean, this is
I have
described
not
in
got.
one of the old books. So
I
I
have
thought
not
I'll
got
ask
an
one of the
opportunity
experienced
to.
surgeons here.
I didn't get an opportunity to repair a large defect like this shown in the picture.
Yes, sir. So, if it's a too big, obliteration is another method. You pack and pack and pack, you obliterate, of course, the bleeding will stop. So, this is a small clip for the residents. This is not a cholesteatoma surgery but this is a mastoidectomy, cortical mastoidectomy for a sigmoid sinus resurfacing for a case of pulsatile tinnitus. So, this is how it may look intraoperatively. The small defects, nothing to worry. This may be disease-induced or your drilling-induced. So if these are so small, nothing to be done. At the end of the surgery, cover these areas with a graft that you're going to place in the cavity. Or if it is too large, as shown here, you may use the bone patty at the end of it and followed by your graft. So that you can use following the surgery. But if there is bleeding, control by patient. Ma'am. So if there is no bleeding, you can cover with bone patty or fascia. That will do. If there's bleeding, as we have discussed, it has to be patiently packed and we should wait for the control of the bleeding. Ma'am, do you want to add something?
So my
No.
message to youngsters is that the forward-lying sinus and the bleeding sinus should not scare our
Yes.
residents, and it doesn't cause major problems. Sometimes they stop the procedure. I don't think you have to stop the procedure in between. The only thing that you can do is that you put the pressure, you put bone wax or bone pate, whatever you have shown, or a muscle flap, and then you can meanwhile you can start doing your procedure somewhere else and come back to this area later once the
Yes,
bleeding
sir.
is completely stopped.
Yes, sir. Dr. Uma ma'am, if there is bleeding in the from the jugular bulb, either in the mastoid tip area or in the from the hypotympanum while doing dissection in the mesotympanum or hypotympanum, again the principle remains pressure, or do you do something else?
The basic principle remains the same. Pressure will be able to control it. The Surgicel can be put. And never use a
Yes.
cautery. Try to
Yes.
catch it because this will enlarge the hole. And
Yes,
will
a very
cause
important point. Yes, ma'am. So this was seen during a posterior tympanotomy, dehiscent jugular bulb and injury. So ultimately, with pressure and patience, the bleeding was tackled and the surgery was completed smoothly.
Dr. Prem, one thing can be done here.
Sir.
You can cover the jugular bulb. You can control the bleed from the jugular bulb with a big piece of Surgicel. Then
Yes,
you
sir.
can then you cover that Surgicel with a piece of bone wax, and then you start drilling. Then you can drilling in the adjacent area. Because
Yes,
if
sir.
you don't cover it with the bone wax, then your burr may displace the piece of Surgicel.
Yes, sir.
So you can stabilize the Surgicel with a piece of bone wax over it, and that bone wax can be removed later if not needed
Yes, sir. Even
after doing the drilling.
yes, sir. Even for vital structures, I also use small pieces of paper cut from the suture pads to keep in vital areas so that even if the cutting bud touches it, the structures are not injured, but the paper protects them. Yes. Yes, sir. Now the question for Dr. Raman, sir. So, this is the very common question asked to us by residents, how to make sure that we have reached the antrum or the largest mastoid cell?
Madam, there are two things. First, lateral semicircular canal bulge should be seen.
Yes, sir.
That will confirm that we are in the antrum.
Yes, sir.
Then anterospecially there should be adductus.
Yes, sir.
That will also confirm that we are in the antrum.
Yes, sir.
So, so identification of the lateral semicircular canal bulge and addutus.
Yes,
now we are very sure that we are in the antrum. And
yes,
plus,
sir.
ma'am, depth. Usually it
Yes.
is 1.5 centimeter deep from the surface of the bone.
Yes, sir. In adults.
In adults.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In
Yes.
adults. Yes.
So in children, it may be less. So a practical point where you don't have to measure is.
If I may say, ma'am, we can
Yes.
put a small. We can always. We have to make sure that we are keeping the look into the tympanic membrane side. We have to make sure
Yes.
because that's the only way we can confirm it. Actually, we cannot gauge the depth. Only way
Yes.
we can compare it with the tympanic membrane annulus.
Yes, that is why you elevate the flap and keep the tympanic membrane or the middle layer in view constantly, so that you
that
can
should
have a
remain.
3D. Yes.
Yeah. You should have 3D.
Both the areas should be focused in one distance, then only we can have an idea about the
Yes,
depth of the middle layer as well as antrum.
So that is why the drilling cannot be done at a very high magnification. It has to be done at a maybe 6 or maybe 4, but not
Absolutely.
like 15 or 16. So where you will lose track of all the anatomical orientation.
Absolutely.
But madam, before that, corner septum can come. You have
Yes, sir. Yes,
I think
sir. We'll talk about that, sir.
Dr. Prem.
Sir.
Hello, Dr. Prem.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For me, I will not be happy till I pass my ball probe
Yes, sir.
into the editors, which goes freely without any resistance, that I am in the antrum and nowhere else.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Valid
I
point. Very
think
valid
that
point,
must
sir.
be done by everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is how you can be, saved from the deception which is caused by the corner septum, which is not very uncommon.
Yes, sir. It's very common actually. Much more common that we anticipate or
Yes,
discuss about.
that's right.
So for the residents, this is just one patient which we operated for some other indication. So this is following a cortical mastoidectomy. So see the scan, the antral cell has not been delineated completely. It's just it's a tunnel kind of mastoidectomy has been done. So intraoperatively, when we opened up the mastoid, this is what we saw. This is not an improperly completed cortical mastoidectomy. It is not saucerized. There is a dehiscence in the sinus plate, and you see just the antral cell is just starting to be visualized because the dural plate has not been delineated completely. So this is following the delineation of the dural plate and the opening of the antrum cell completely. Look into the orientation with the tympanic membrane area. So if you divide the tympanic membrane into 4 quadrants, one line passing to the axis of the handle of Malleus, the other one perpendicular to that, then antral cell lies bisects the posterior superior quadrant. So if this is the tympanic membrane area, then this has to be this is the spine of Henle. So this has to be here, posterior superior to the spine of Henle. So it has not been completely delineated because the dural plate has not been delineated clearly. So follow these steps that has been described classically and follow the sequence. This is reason why the sequence has been described by all the senior otologists till date. So we follow the steps unless until some rare scenarios like a contracted antrum or so. However, follow the steps if you want to avoid complications. Dr. Amit sir, tell us about the corner septum. So, if the resident forgets or is unable to identify the corner septum, what will happen and why it's so important?
So, ma'am, the most common issue which come across with the corner septum is they think that they open the antrum and they start hitting into the posterior superior quadrant area, injuring the second genome.
Yes.
And that in the past it had been a real ruckus for us. Now, good thing is all my patients get CT scan prior, so at least I'm safe on that side. But corner septum that way always creates a difficulty to exactly location of the antrum. And as I said, for me, the landmark is the annulus anteriorly. I'll always compare.
Yes. So as we discussed about the points to keep in mind when to identify the antrum, so corner septum, the depth will not match. And as Pasi sir has mentioned, you will not be able to pass your probe anteriorly to all the adductors. So if you assume this area to be your antrum cell and you assume that this is your adductus, then you are going to drill further and injure the second genome. That is why identifying the corner septum and removing it is very, very crucial.
And that Prem, one point is more that
Yes,
corner septum is usually 8 to 9 millimeter deep, whereas antrum is 15 millimeter deep.
Yes.
So, so there is a gross difference between the depth of corner septum and antrum.
Yes,
so,
yes, sir.
But in spite of that, Raman, the beginners, we are talking about residents.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I fully
They may
agree, sir,
still
with
think
you.
that they are in the antrum.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Even
sir.
at
Yes, I fully
8
agree.
mm or 9 mm.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, ma'am, sorry for the interruption. A very wonderful discussion is going on, but we have half an hour left.
Yes. I'll move faster.
Yes.
So
Let us not disturb Prem too much now.
sir. So mastoid cavity saucerization, I will not ask this question. I just cover briefly because mastoid cavity saucerization is very, very important because of these 3 points basically that gives a better lighting of the medial structures and proper visualization. And that way you are going to land up with less complications. Of course, as we go deeper, your handling of the instrumentation becomes difficult. If you have saucerized, it becomes slightly easier for you. And surprisingly, even if the cavity looks big after saucerization, interestingly, the cavity size becomes smaller due to soft tissue prolapse post-operatively. So before we proceed further steps after a complete mastoidectomy, complete the saucerization and proceed further to the next steps. Now, the commonest and most dreaded complication of mastoidectomy, injury to the facial nerve. Dr. Amit Sharma, what is the
Ma'am.
common site of injury to the facial nerve?
So the most common site is usually iatrogenic, which I come across is usually within the second genu area. That's the area.
Why, sir?
Because as I said, usually we'll be encountering, we'll be fiddling in that area to find the editors. We'll be trying to really work hard to find some access. Usually this is the area where we hit.
Yes, sir. So if we, as we discussed, if you haven't identified the antral cell, missed the corner septum, or you're using a large cutting bar which is not appropriate for that site, then as
That
you have,
totally
yes,
agree, ma'am. That is why
yes, sir.
I really liked your statement when you said the biggest size possible bug for that area.
Yes. So the size keeps on changing as we keep on changing the area of interest
Absolutely.
for the
Correct, ma'am.
surgery. And of course, poor anatomic orientation. Get yourself oriented from time to time.
Yeah.
Now we'll discuss about the types of facial nerve injury and what to do and how to avoid. Dr. Avinav,
Yes.
so suppose we have injured the fallopian canal, the epineurium of the nerve is intact. What is to be
Okay.
done?
If there is only injury, the epineurium is intact, nothing much to do. We need to be vigilant, just recheck it. We should recheck it only whether the epineurium is intact or not. And we should be more vigilant. We should call the resident should call the senior, and then but nothing more aggressive need to be done at this stage.
So even seniors also can do this mistake. So we cannot
Huh,
call
definitely.
others. We have to address itself.
Yes, that's right. Seniors can also do this
Huh,
mistake,
but
but
if with an
Abhinav,
intact
but we have to start the conservative medical treatment
Yes.
Huh,
and
Yes.
definitely
and
we are
removal
sure.
of the pressure of the pack.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is where we have found intraoperatively only, no?
Yes, sir. Intraoperatively only.
So we
So
can
we-
ask the first thing which I usually do is ask the anesthetist to give one shot of immediate hydrocortisone.
Correct.
है ना? And if it is very confined, then I usually don't do, and I generally don't find anything. Sometimes I haven't encountered in such cases any
I
deficit.
think we should give steroids.
Steroid, and I continue for 1 day or two also in the post-operative period.
And as sir has mentioned, do not do a tight pressure pressing or
Definitely,
packing.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
osculoplasty also we need to reconsider it where it
Yes.
is, and then
Yes.
if there's a possibility also, then we should avoid it, and or do it with more precautions then. So that
as
doesn't.
I
sir has
think-
pointed, all the points are seen in this particular video. It's a improperly done mastoidectomy. So what has happened is the facial nerve was decent. However, the packing has been very tight in this area. That is why what it has led into that the nerve has become edematous. That is why. So to release the pressure, so 5 to 6 mm proximal and 5 to 6 mm distal bone from the fallopian canal was removed to release the pressure of the facial nerve
Yes,
apart
yes.
from the conservative management.
Yes,
So
Decompression.
yes, facial nerve decompression has been done because there was edema. So at the end of the surgery, this is what the facial nerve looked like, and the partial facial nerve paresis recovered within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
This was it's a re-exploration actually where the patient.
Yes, sir. It was a re-exploration case.
It's a different situation then.
Yes. No, just for teaching the residents, I have tried to include few videos because it's an online discussion, so they may get bored. So now, Dr. Pasi, sir, if there is a breach in epineurium, but the fasciculus, the nerve fibers are intact, sir, how would you manage, sir?
Dr. Prem, in this case, again, I will do some decompression proximal and distal to the site of the injury.
Yes, sir.
And I will cover this raw area with my the fascia that I'm going to use as a graft,
Yes, sir.
I will put make a tube of the temporalis fascia and put it over it, gel
Yes,
form,
sir.
and again, then the graft. So
And
I think
without
this
a
much
tight packing.
should be enough for this
Yes,
situation.
yes, sir. Even if the epineurium is breached, if the nerve fibers are intact, just decompression is sufficient. But we must protect the nerve from future injuries by giving another layer of fascia apart from the grafting. Yes, sir. Pasi sir, again this question is to you. If there's a partial or complete transaction intraoperatively, what is to be done?
We have to be serious, and we have to
Yes, sir.
do a sufficient amount of decompression proximal and distal to the site of injury till we
Yes,
get the normal looking nerve ending.
Yes, sir.
And then at the same time, we have to harvest a graft, whatever greater auricular nerve or whatever graft you want to use. And I will like to do the grafting. If I have in my case, we used to have a plastic surgeon who was very well trained in doing this grafting under his binocular loop with very fine sutures. He used to do this suturing of the cable grafting with us, but we can also do it ourselves. But in this
Yes.
situation, we need to do decompression along with the cable grafting.
Sir, if the surgeon identifies the transaction intraoperatively and if the nerve ends are fresh, of course, intraoperatively, then would you
Of course,
prefer
it will
end-to-end
depend upon
anastomosis?
the size of the injury.
Yes,
If
sir.
there is a complete transection and there is a lot of loss of nerve tissue, we need a cable grafting. But I
Yes,
think
sir.
you are talking about the situation when we have a sufficient amount of injury to the nerve, but we still have some nerve endings intact, and
Yes,
the
sir.
effect is not too much. Then
Yes, sir.
we can decompress proximal and distal segments and try to bring the edges together, and then do the facial grafting over it, and without cable grafting also we can try.
Dr. Pasi,
Right.
if injury is less than of the 40% of the fibers, then I
Yes.
think we can approximate the fibers and you can do the decompression and we can cover it with a graft.
Yeah, that is what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. If less than 40% fibers are injured.
So
And even after, I would like to add something, even after all this, I think steroids should be continued to take care of traumatic as well
yes,
as reactive edema, which will
Of course,
yes, yes,
Uma,
ma'am.
steroid will be ramban in this situation.
Yes, yes, sir.
yes,
That has to be given.
So this is a case scenario where the patient had persistent partial weakness which didn't improve. So what we found is there was a partial transaction. So the nerve was intact in some portions, but it was partially transacted. So this is the neuroma that has formed, and the proximal and the distal part of the nerve is still continuous, and it was responding to the nerve stimulator. So this part of the neuroma was trimmed, and the ends of the nerve, the transacted part, was anastomoed partially. So using a 8O or 9O nylon, the suturing was done. So this is the nerve in toto. This is the neuroma that has been trimmed, and this is the proximal and distal part, and medially it was continuous. So if it's a partial transaction, we can do a end-to-end anastomosis of the transacted part. And as sir has mentioned, if there is a loss of tissue, then we can do a cable graft. Even you can use a partial cable graft as shown in this case. So the part of the nerve was missing here in this patient. So you can see, so this is the distal part, this is the proximal part. So partial nerve fiber was missing. This is the remaining part of the nerve. So the greater auricular nerve was taken and it was partial anastomosis, cable grafting was performed in this case. So for
Madam,
complete transaction, sir.
Madam, will you like to stitch it with the 80 filament or you will like to fix it with the fibrin glue? Cable
Sir, I
grafting.
use 8O or 9O nylon sutures in areas where I can manipulate my instrument. So in one of the scenarios where anteriorly I didn't have any space, so I used tissue glue, fascia and tissue glue, and
Yeah, yeah,
posteriorly
yeah.
I could do the stitching. So if that area
Okay,
allows you for manipulation or maneuvering, it is preferred.
Yes.
If it is not feasible, then you have to use tissue glue when you have covered by a fascia, as sir has mentioned, and you
Right.
can use tissue glue, sir.
Right, ma'am.
So
Right.
that's absolutely right, ma'am, because the suturing in that particular part is really a task. So when you're doing the cable grafting, it is better that it is supported with some temporalis fascia with the tissue glue, and that works well.
Yes,
Because
yes.
because practically putting a stitch, it's really task.
Yes, yes. Stitching is really tough.
Now, how many stitch do you prefer means? Because I find two, I usually do two, one just to stabilize the two ends superiorly and inferiorly, like, because
So,
that is also
yes.
a great
So
task
the
actually.
whole
So I
point
find
is
it
to
very
keep
difficult.
the ends together, end to end
The
Together.
idea is
together.
this only,
And
So you can
aligned.
use, yes, so
And
you can
aligned.
use 2 or 3, however maximum is possible in that area. Sometimes you
yes,
cannot
yes.
expose more than 180 degrees of the remaining facial nerve.
Hmm.
And there is stapes anteriorly, lateral canal
Exactly.
posteriorly. It may not allow you to put more than 2
Hmm.
sutures. So
Hmm.
the whole point is to keep them end to end approximated.
Actually, the more we intervene, the more injury we are also
That's the
creating
point.
there also.
Absolutely. The more we intervene, more is the chance that we are going to
And
injure
I
more.
usually also cover it with fascia, the 360
Yes.
degree,
Always,
so
always,
that
Yes,
always,
we wrap it
always.
with it.
Put a small piece of fascia.
Hmm.
Dr. Abhinav sir,
Yes, sir.
injury to lateral
Yes, sir.
semicircular canal. Where and how, why do we cause injury to the lateral semicircular canal?
It's mostly when we open the mastoid antrum, and
Yes.
many times it's overzealous. Like we are not just seeing that it's not considering that it is coming the exact landmark, and sometimes outer shell we drill it, and then we get a blue lining, and then something is coming like that, and that is also very appropriate time we should stop. Nothing much will happen. Sometimes patient presents with vertigo that can be easily tackled with steroid, or only rarely we require some Stemetil or like for vertigo.
Sometimes the disease itself might have
Huh.
injured or made progress
So it
into the lateral semicircular
exactly.
canal.
So at that point we need to first clear the disease, and
Yes.
then if depends on the size, like 4 mm size, less than 4 mm, then we can simply cover it. Like more than 4 mm, then we need to cover it with to take the help of with the help of cartilage, and then graft over it. Less than 4 mm, only usually sometimes 3 to 4 mm, we can only use this temporis fascia part of it, and less than that generally don't require any further coverage.
So we have many systems, classification systems about to grade the degree of injury, whether it's disease induced or surgical induced. So if it is Dornhofer 1 or Palva's Ramsay's type 1 or 2, if it's a small one, we may just cover it with a layer of fascia or bone patty. If it's a large enough, then bone patty is desirable, followed by fascia. But if it has breached the endoleaf and there is a leak intraoperatively, either disease induced or iatrogenic, then it must be sealed using a muscle plug, so that future the patient doesn't develop infection and leading to labyrinthitis. Anyway, your surgery might lead to the serious labyrinthitis. However, we do not want any infection to further go into and lead to meningitis and other intracranial complications. Pasi sir, would you like to say something else
You
about
very well
how to
said,
manage?
Prem. Very well
Sir.
said. The only we belong to it. The time when we were taught that you don't have to disturb the cholecystoma sac from over a breached lateral semicircular canal. Just leave it like this, and nothing will happen. But
Yes, sir.
not anymore. You must eradicate the disease and repair the breach.
Yes, sir. So if it's a small one, we can just use bone patty and covered by fascia. But if it's a large one with leak, I didn't get a video for the lateral semicircular canal, but this is a case where there was a cholesteatoma induced and following removal, there's a leak from the cochlea. So from the promontory area, so we can see there are 2 fistulas there, and following the removal, there was a perilymph leak from the cochlea itself. And this girl had a conductive hearing loss preoperatively. So what is important is we must manipulate very gently, and we tried to seal that with a piece of muscle and covered that with a piece of fascia, and we applied tissue glue. Surprisingly, the patient's bone conduction remained unchanged.
Okay. We got 2 cases where there was just a similar situation, but the patient was having mixed hearing loss.
Yes, sir.
So because the cochlea is involved, there is a fistula there, then definitely means it's the patient is lucky in your case that sensorineural component wasn't there.
So actually, this is part of one of our publication where we have published a series of labyrinthine fistulas in cholesteatoma. So at that time, we did a lot of literature review. What we found is, even if there is a fistula which has breached the endolymphatic compartment, there may not be SN component, because as the disease progresses very gradually, it makes a capsule around it. So that way, the remaining part of the vestibule and the cochlea may not get affected by the disease itself. So the hearing might be preserved. Also, there's something called diaphragm between the lateral semicircular canal area and the cochlea anteriorly. That also avoids the toxin-induced SN loss in this
SN
kind
loss,
of
yeah.
cases. So whatever the fistula is, a gentle handling is very much important, because you may preserve the hearing loss. So gentle handling, multi-layer cover, and intraoperative and post-operative steroid coverage,
So
and that is the
I'll just
best
add
thing
one
that
thing,
can be
ma'am.
done. Sir.
I'll just add last thing. Whenever dealing with a labyrinthine fistula, deal in the last. When you're done every other work,
Yes, yes.
At last
Absolutely.
only, yes.
Yes. So if you're aware that there's a lateral semicircular canal fistula, all the disease, all the steps should be completed first. Come back to the fistula side at the end, so that the leak site or the injuries duration remains minimum, and you can immediately repair it. That avoids the risk of labyrinthitis and the risk of SN loss. Very valid point, sir.
You
Sir?
don't use like a split cartilage, thinned out cartilage over it. Generally, what we do, we use cartilage, the conchal cartilage which we harvest, and then we slice it, and then we put it, and then augment it. It works well there also. We don't use muscle plug actually, basically.
No, muscle plug, if you have breached the endolymphatic sac, so there is a leak. If there's no
In
leak,
that
bone
case.
patty does.
Then
Bone patty does a very good job.
advantage of bone patty is you can shape it well.
Yes,
Cartilage
it goes
hard
with the
to
shape
shape.
of it. Yes, sir. Dr. Uma, ma'am, what will you advise the residents so that they'll avoid injury to the stapes? I'm talking about stapes only because if I'll discuss each and every ossicle, it's going to be time consuming.
I think they should be very careful while drilling.
Yes, ma'am.
And they should not be directly touching over the ossicles, and because touching over the ossicles will injure the stapes. So the drilling is the only thing which can cause injury to the stapes. And also while during the inside out,
Yes,
when they are
ma'am.
doing, then the stapes can be injured. Too much of manipulation or too much of, I mean, you should respect the tissue as we said.
Yes,
Too much
ma'am.
manipulation with the micro instruments, that will also injure the stapes.
So if the ossicles are intact and continuous, mobile, then while drilling, the incus and the stapes joint may be dislocated, so that the accidental touching of the malleus or incus, through that the vibration, the mechanical injury of the powered instrument will not be transferred and will not land up in SN loss post-operatively. And of course, while removing the cholesteatoma from that area, the direction of the push while removing the disease must be in a direction parallel and away from the stapedius tendon, so that the stability of the stapes is maintained. Dr. Raman, would you leave granulations around the stapes if you want to avoid the stapes area, the touching of the stapes induced SN loss or labyrinthitis?
Yeah, if those are only granulations,
Yes.
then I don't mind leaving it. But if it is matrix, then I will have to remove the matrix.
Yes,
I can't
all the
leave matrix there.
cholesteatoma should be removed, but granulation, because this is part of inflammation and
Yeah,
infection.
yeah.
If you take care of the
हाँ जी.
disease process, then it's going to settle down over a
So,
period
ma'am,
of
ma'am,
time.
I'll just ask
So,
one
madam,
question, ma'am.
Yes.
madam, for matrix removal, I will do it from the posterior to anterior direction.
Yes, sir.
And if fiber guided laser is available, then that should be preferred for removing the matrix from the stapes foot plate.
Laser.
If we are having laser, then that should be the less traumatic.
So you mean
Then
to
it
say
can't-
if there is a very minimum amount of matrix left over the foot plate, which is difficult to remove, you are going to burn that matrix with laser.
Yeah. If it is
Okay, sir.
adherent, if
Yes,
it can't be removed by simple maneuvers.
Yes, sir.
So, ma'am, I'll just take one question. I'll just ask the panel, ma'am, this granulation around the stapes, yes, if it is too much to be removed, please leave it. Regarding
Yes.
the matrix, I will ask Pasi sir and all of the panelists here, because I have seen some otologists cutting both the crura and doing the work. Is it recommended?
Pasi, sir?
Anyone like
Sir,
Pasi sir?
unmute, sir. Sir, it's muted, sir.
Anyone also can take up, ma'am. Like even you can
So
also say, ma'am, Sagar, ma'am.
it's
Because I have
like
seen few.
the rule of is preserve as much of ossicle possible with a
Exactly.
gentle removal pattern. If you can preserve the crura, why not? Because then the ossiculoplasty, the hearing outcome is going to be totally different
It's going to be
than
very
what
much
is going
better
to be.
in, yeah, true.
Yes,
True.
sir. So,
Dr. Prem,
sir.
in a cholesteatomatous disease, generally the superstructure that we are talking about is not available.
It will be eroded. Yes, sir. If it's too much, then that will be
So
eroded.
that makes
sir.
our task simple. We don't have
Yes, yes, sir.
the
It
good
comes
thing is
only
that
with your
the foot plate
experience
is
at this point.
a strong structure. It doesn't
Yes,
get
sir.
destroyed.
Yes, sir.
Too much of discussion on this. We should stick to what you said on granulations.
Sir. Briefly about the post-operative complication. So, Dr. Amit Sharma, sir, what
Ma'am.
causes the sensorineural hearing loss and vertigo because of our surgical steps, which the residents, it's kind of differential. What is the reason for sensorineural hearing loss with or without vertigo?
So if it is vertigo, I will certainly think that they have hit the labyrinth. They have done the later semester canal. They have injured. If it is associated with the vertigo, if it is
Yes,
a purely sensory loss without vertigo, my bet will be on that they have fiddled with the stapes.
Yes, sir. Dr. Raman, sir, do you
Yes.
think that any degree of pure SN loss with when you manipulate this stapes, their patient will not complain of vertigo?
Yes, if you have manipulated the stapes, then patient can complain of vertigo in the post-op period.
So it's like vertigo, the SN loss, whether it's because of manipulation directly over the stapes or because of injury to the lateral semicircular canal or thermal injury or the vibration-induced injury, some degree of serous labyrinthitis usually
Yes.
accompanies. So some degree of vertigo will be there. So the nystagmus may be paratic or irritative based on whether it is serous labyrinthitis or suppurative labyrinthitis.
Separate, yes.
Yes. So, Dr. Amit Sharma, sir, if you see a facial paresis or palsy post-operatively
Yes,
in
ma'am.
your patient, how would you manage?
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, this is like we have encountered during our this thing, ma'am. The facial paralysis, ma'am. First of all, you have to grade it actually,
Yes.
and it has to be assessed on the evening of the surgery and next day morning. Also, assess it when the dressing is out. With the dressing, it gives a false impression.
Sir. So, when do
So
you remove
now,
your dressing, sir?
ma'am, when did you remove?
Your dressing?
Yeah. So I'll if it is an injury, we'll remove on the same night also.
Okay.
We'll judge it because, ma'am, thing with the dressing is it gives a false impression of the grading.
Yes.
people like this dressing will cause eye closure and it will be considered as a grade 3, whereas it might be 4 or 5 also.
Very, very important point, because we have seen even following complete facial transaction in a parotid surgery, the eye closure might be there, even if there is no
Ma'am,
dressing, because the fibers to the eyes, they may function even for 48 hours or so. So that may
exactly.
give us a fallacious impression.
And ma'am, continue with the steroids, give the
Yes.
good dose of steroid, continue with the steroids, get a CT scan done, review the surgery videos if you have, and if it is definitely if it's a grade 4 or 5, we have to make people like make the patient understand that he might have to take another surgery again. If it is 4, 3, 2, we might give a chance to heal.
Yes.
Actually, immediately after surgery, we should see whether if there's a facial palsy, then we should just ask the operating surgeon what exactly happened, whether you have touched it or not. If
Yeah.
at all, if it doesn't,
No,
then also we should wait for.
most of us will not say anything bad they have done with the case. I think the standard teaching goes that if it is a late onset facial paralysis of any grade, let us wait and watch.
Yes. Yes,
We
sir.
need a conservative approach.
And sometimes, sir, the effect of local, we need to wait for 3 to 4
Yeah.
hours so that the
Yes,
effect of
yes.
local goes off.
Yeah,
Sometimes we
Yes.
are very
Everything
much.
That's why SDSS after 4 hours to win for the winning of,
Yeah.
of the low effect of the local anesthesia. Yes, sir. So this
Because
is
if it is an
table is
injury,
from
it can
Shambo.
progress also.
Yes,
If it's an
yes, ma'am.
injury, it can
Injury
progress also.
progress,
That
or
that
there
is
is no
also to be
improvement
seen.
also the following day in the morning. If
We
there
have to
will be no
observe.
improvement. Observe.
So this table very aptly summarizes. This is from Shambo itself. Immediate post-operatively, wait for the effect of the local anesthesia to win off in 3 to 4 hours. If there is mild paresis, observe and do conservative management. If the paresis progresses rapidly, go for surgery. If there is grade 5, grade 6 paralysis immediately following surgery, not improving with next 4 hours, return back to the operating room. They say you should not see the sunrise and sunset in this
That's
situation.
what
That means explore before 12 hours.
exactly
If
the
you
following day.
observe delayed facial weakness delayed, so patient has come to us in a delayed manner. So if the paresis has occurred 2 to 3 days or 1 week later, it's always because of edema. Observe with antivirals and steroids based on the duration. If it's a severe paresis or paralysis, but the patient has come to us later on, we can go for nerve conduction studies. Will not go into that because we are running out of time. So the residents can go to this table from Shambo. It's a very important one. So as Pasi sir mentioned, this patient developed facial paresis
7 days.
7 days following canal wall mastectomy with conservative management. It recovered within next 3 to 4 weeks. Now, infection, we have to give antibiotics, we have to remove all the cells, we have to, in between, do the saline irrigation to reduce the bacterial count. To avoid recidivism, Dr. Avinav, what areas the residents must be careful so that the chances of recidivism is less? The key areas.
The key areas, basically, they should, before closing, the sinoduro angle should be properly checked,
Sir.
the sinus tympani, and the
Yes, yes.
mastoid tip. These three are the potential sites where we usually leave it actually. So
One more, Abhinav,
yes,
anterior
sir.
epitympanic recess.
Yes,
Anterior
yes.
epitympanic recess, exactly. Just above the station tube. That is also sometimes they don't address. Okay, they take it for granted sometimes. So we should check that only. Then this clearly decreases the chances of recurrence.
In some cases, even the hypotympanum can also hide disease.
That's right.
Happened in a few cases also, and good meatoplasty should be the,
So
that should be,
this
that
is
is very
for
important.
Then
all the
sinus-
panelists, sir.
Then
This
what
is the
type C,
sir.
type C sinus tympani may be very deep,
Yes,
and
sir.
we can take the help of endoscope there.
We can use endoscope. We can use Whirlybird. You can use the mirrors, micro mirrors. So
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
instrument we use, we have to make sure that we remove all the disease from the
Yeah,
sinus
yeah.
tympani
And
area.
if possible, remove in toto actually, not
Yes,
in
sir.
piecemeal, if possible. That is
Yes.
one of the best. It will make the life of a surgeon very easy actually. Otherwise, pick and choose, pick and choose.
So that is very easy if the cholesterol matrix is thick. Sometimes it's very thin and
Very
friable.
thin,
That
friable.
makes our life very difficult actually. Sir. So for all the residents, the preventive measures are very basic. No, clear your anatomy, make your anatomy strong by reading books, by temporal bone dissection, by observing, analyzing the radiology, understand the disease by reading, by assessing the disease, clinical examination, radiology, and assist surgeries, observe the disease pattern, understand the disease pattern. Before you start doing surgeries yourself, do temporal bone dissection, assist as many as surgeries as you can. And this is my own sentence, which I strongly believe is, do not do a surgery, it may be any surgery, if you don't know how to identify and address common intraoperative complications. At least the theory part, how to address the complication yourself. So if you don't know, then please do not attempt on a live patient. Intraoperatively, 3 points: identify the complication and address promptly. Patient safety is priority. Call for help if available. There is no point of ego at that point of time. And if the help is not available, then refer the patient immediately to a higher center, but with detailed intraoperative notes, or if possible, talk to the surgeon who is going to address your case. It's actually a crime if you hide the findings from the surgeon who is going to operate. I hope all the panelists agree with these points.
Yes. Very much.
Sir. So a few concluding slides. Don't miss the forest for the trees. Even the experienced otologist may be lost. So step back, reorient yourself intermittently while doing a surgery. Do not do in a very high magnification if not required. Despite being experienced, we do encounter failures or complications from time to time, but we must have a fail forward attitude. That means we must learn from the complication. We must analyze why that complication happened and what can be done to avoid in further cases. Also, we don't have to learn the hard way. That means we don't have to learn from our complications. We also can learn from others' complications. That's a smarter way. Thank you. These are my references.
Very nice, Dr. Prem. I think time is running out. I would only would like to say one thing, that you could handle all your panelists who are, I think everyone is senior to you, quite senior.
Yes,
and you did very well, and congratulations to
Thank
you
sir.
for a very good, excellent
Dr.
presentation.
Prem,
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Prem, I want to highlight one thing.
Yes, sir.
I want to highlight one point, because I have seen that complication.
Yes, sir.
A area posterior inferior to the stretching tube or anterior inferior to the promontory.
Yes,
there
sir.
you may get aberrant carotid artery.
Yes, sir.
So I have faced a complication where aberrant carotid artery got injured from myself during surgery.
Oh,
So
Sir, actually, I tried to cover the common complications.
I know. But just I wanted to highlight this case. Then we referred the case to Dr. Vijay Trehan to Delhi, and then he did the endovascular coiling. So that case was saved. Nothing happened. But one
so
should
that is
remain
why I said
vigilant.
knowing normal and abnormal anatomy, both is very important. That is a roadmap to all the surgeries.
That is why
And so-
assessing the radiology yourself is very, very crucial, rather than depending on the radiologist.
And so in the present, when we are seeing an increase of skull base osteomyelitis, this complication, because I have also seen one or two cases, the exposed carotid was there actually, and it was basically a case of skull base osteomyelitis, because it's on the rise. We are frequently getting skull base osteomyelitis, so we must be prepared for it, and we should do a detailed radiology before attempting such cases.
That case was reported
That
to
is the
the
only remedy for the sit with the radiologist and then come out.
That case was reported
Most
in
of
the
the time,
American.
sir, Most of
That
the time,
case
if
was
there is a bleeding around the carotid, it may not be the carotid itself, but with the venous plexus around it.
Success around it,
So
yes.
you don't have to be panicked at that point of time. And if the carotid bleeds, so immediately put a muscle patch and call for help from the CTVS people or the interventional radiologist.
In that case, that was carotid and blood came out with
Yes.
such much pressure that it soiled the ceiling fan in the OT.
Yes, I can understand.
So, so then I packed the middle ear with Surgicel and
Yes,
all
sir.
the cotton swabs. So luckily
Yes,
we
sir.
were able to bleed, we were able to stop the bleed, and we were able to shift the patient to Delhi to
Excellent,
Dr.
sir.
Vijay Trehan.
GV
That
Pant
case was
Hospital.
report.
Thanks to Dr. Vijay Trehan.
Raman, that patient was admitted in ENT under the unit of Dr. Raj Pasi, and then from ENT we had taken the patient to Dr. Trehan.
I am aware of
Yes,
about
sir.
this
Yes,
patient, Raman. Ishwar Singh is reminding.
Yeah, patient came to ENT and then he was taken by our resident to Trehan.
Yes. I know
Trehan
that.
doesn't
I
entertain
remember
a
that.
direct emergency there.
Thank you.
I remember
Thank
that.
you.
Sir, during those days, we were not getting CT scan done before mastectomy. So that was our fault.
Yes.
So that's why I couldn't recognize the aberrant carotid artery, because there were present only granulations and I was trying to clean that. At that time, injury to the carotid occurred.
So you should not probe with a sharp instrument near the ischemic tube opening. That is a lesson you should learn.
Yeah. No, I was not using sharp instruments at all.
Use a blunt one or a granulation, let it be there. Don't poke it.
Yeah, I was using blunt instruments, but still injury occurred. And that case was reported in the American Journal of Otolaryngology.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the discussion. And I thank Dr. Prem Sagar ma'am for discussing all the complications in detail as far as the resident perspective. And I thank all the panelists for giving their inputs. And I'm sure even though we are doing this basic surgery since many decades, but we have learned something today from this panel discussion from each other.
Thank you, Dr. Raman. Thank you.
So,
Thank
sir,
you.
last words from Dr. Bhushan Patil and Dr. Ravinder Gera, President, Haryana AOI.
Dr. Ravinder Gera will speak for a minute.
So really, thank you, Dr. Prem, for wonderful moderation of the session. I thanks my teacher, Dr. J.C. Pasi sir, for wonderful interaction, and big thanks to Dr. Uma Garg, Dr. Abhinav Srivastava, and my own friend, Dr. Amit Sharma,